This is Family Time 103, and we're talking about intrinsic motivation. In class this week, we're going to talk about extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. Essentially, extrinsic motivation is being motivated by external factors, either trying to receive a reward or trying to avoid some sort of punishment or some sort of negative consequence. Extrinsic motivation isn't entirely bad. When I think of it in a school setting, it starts when we're young, when we're in elementary school, and we get to do things like clip up on the color chart for good behavior, or we get a sticker, or we get some sort of treat. That's extrinsic motivation. We're getting some sort of little reward. Or on the flip side, we get yelled at, or we have to stay in from recess. That's also extrinsic motivation because we're receiving some sort of punishment and we want to avoid that. Extrinsic motivation is something that we see throughout our entire lives. In a business setting, we have extrinsic motivators like a pay raise or a promotion or a new office, something like that. Those things are extrinsic, and they're not bad. We can enjoy getting rewarded, and it's natural for us to not like to get in trouble, to avoid punishments, those sorts of things. But ideally, I want students, I want athletes who are primarily intrinsically motivated. The tricky thing with that is it can be hard to find a way to tap in to that internal desire. Because that's what intrinsic motivation is. It's something from within that drives us to succeed at our chosen endeavor. It's us sort of being task-oriented and wanting to be successful for ourselves. I really believe that type of motivation is in everybody. And when I see students in school who maybe get disillusioned with academics, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that sometimes we kind of beat it out of some of our students in some way. And I don't think that's usually intentional. But sometimes in school we're trying to fit students into certain boxes. We do this in life. We think, okay, everybody has to do this thing and we need to stand in line and we need to raise our hands. And I'm not knocking those things. I work as a teacher. I work with multiple grade levels too, and we have to have rules, we have to have structure, and people desire structure to a point. Giving structure and guiding students lets them know they're cared for. Lets everybody in our lives know we care for them if we're providing them some structure. We're not ignoring them. I think people really desire some level of discipline in their lives. So I'm not knocking the structures that we use because they're necessary, especially when you have 30 students in a classroom and they all have their own individual needs and challenges and problems outside of school. We have to give some blanket rules and some blanket structure to everybody. But ideally, we work to find ways to tap into the intrinsic motivation that we all have. I think of all of us at our earliest stages in life. We want to learn. We're curious about everything when we come into this world. We're burning to learn. I don't think that ever goes away. Sometimes it gets buried. Sometimes it's, well, maybe I don't love this academic subject, or I struggle in a classroom setting, whatever it is. But that desire is still there. And we can find ways to tap into it. It's hard to do. It's a lot harder than just giving some sort of reward. That's one of the reasons I struggle with grading a little bit, just in the sense that I don't love it. I don't love the assigning an A, B, C, D, F, those sorts of things, because it often becomes a game to get the A, or to simply pass, depending on where on that spectrum certain students fall. And it becomes a game of, like, what do I have to do to get blah? What do I have to do to get an A? Just tell me what I'm supposed to do and I'll do that. Or, what is the bare minimum I have to do so that I can pass the class and I can move on? Where our focus should always be on learning. And I understand that we don't naturally gravitate toward every subject. Not every lesson is going to be our favorite. I am a proponent of having a well-rounded education, of learning as much as possible, because I think that makes us powerful. I try to instill that in my students, or try to give them that message that even if you don't love whatever it is, don't love math, don't love science, don't love English, whatever it might be, by having knowledge in those areas, you become dangerous. You give yourself choices in the world because you have skills. That, to me, is an important thing. We all want to be successful at something. And I think finding success, especially finding success in areas that are challenging to us, I think that translates. I think that translates to everything we do in life. The trick is, for us teachers and coaches, to try to tap into that intrinsic motivation. To try to sell the value of whatever it is we're trying to teach, and trying to convince our students, our athletes, the people we work with, trying to convince them that there is value, that this is important. Sometimes that's a hard sell. But I think it's important for us to remember that it's in everybody. Everyone has some sort of inherent motivation. And sometimes we got to spend some time trying to find it. Trying to tap into the thing that actually lights up a student's eyes, that actually engages them. Trying to create opportunities to show that intrinsic motivation, because sometimes it does get buried and it becomes hard to find. Sometimes our students forget they have it. And if we at least give them opportunities to find it in certain areas, that can bleed across into different subject areas, into other areas that might be more challenging. One thing I'm going to have my students focus on this week is I want them to pick a time where they did have to take some initiative on their own, and they had to work independently because they were motivated. And we're going to talk about how that does translate to other aspects of our life. Until next time, much love.